and get some final thoughts on what happened to the Nets tonight. They're going to have the number 6 seed. They lost their last 2 games, guys. What did you see in those games, and does that bode poorly for them going into the playoffs?
I thought Tanaka was excellent, Bob. No doubt about it in that first. Oh, I'm sorry. Completely different postgame show. You know, the question with the Nets down the stretch was, what's the priority? Was that number 5 seed what the team was focused on, or, as we talked about before the game, was Jason Kidd more concerned with health and rest and getting his team ready for the playoffs, maybe the way he preferred it as a player, Mike?
So now the question will be, can he crank back up the mentality that they had when they put together that great stretch run? You can't let a team, particularly when you're going into the playoffs, shoot 53%, 40% from the three-point line, 7 players in double figures for Cleveland. 3/4 of 30 or more points for the opponent. That's not going to get it done come playoff time, but we understand that you had the majority of your players were not in uniform tonight or able to play tonight, but now you have to go back and everybody's got to buy in to kind of getting back to the mentality that got them all those wins during that great stretch they had.
All right, guys. So, guys, the scenario is either it could have been the Bulls in the first round or the Raptors. Are the Raptors a better matchup for the Nets?
I don't know if it's that cut and dry, Bob. I think there are issues with both matchups in that they're completely different teams. It's a different set of problems. Obviously, when you're a coach, you're looking at the strengths and the weaknesses. Where can you take advantage of a team, and where could an opponent have an advantage over you? With Chicago, it's all about the effort level. It's all about the size and the playoff experience that Mike touched on during the broadcast. With Toronto, it's a bit of a wild card. You don't know how these guys are going to respond. DeMar DeRozan is now a standout player. He used to be a guy that was trying to find a niche in this league. Kyle Lowry in a contract year, put together the best season that he's ever had. Young big men, Valanciunas, developing player. Terrence Ross getting more opportunities. Amir Johnson has improved, but there's no resume of postseason success for the Toronto Raptors.
No, many of those names you just mentioned, Ryan, haven't been there before. So this is their first experience. They'll go through the preparation with their coach. And their coach has been involved in playoff series, as an assistant before he got into Toronto. He's done a sensational job in preparing this team. This team fought every night for Toronto. They wanted to be a playoff team. Their coach under scrutiny. It was last year of his contract. They had a new front office person brought in as a general manager, overseeing the whole thing. A lot of decisions to be made in the end. They've got to decide how much they want to invest in Lowry to bring him back. Now all of a sudden, after the great season, now you start over again. Okay, now it's for real. This is that other season, the playoff season. And if you're looking at experience of Chicago versus the lack of experience for Toronto, some people will look like that's the better advantage for Brooklyn.
Well, Mike, getting back to what you said earlier about the last couple of games, some of the veterans were resting and gearing up for this playoff drive. Mentally, do you think they're at the right place? Does Jason Kidd have them in a good spot right now?
That's what we don't know. We don't know what's gone on in the practices, in the film sessions, what Jason has been saying to them. You can't sit 4, 5, 6 players out and not go into a locker room after the game and explain to the team or ahead of time what we're doing and the reasons that we're doing it. For certain guys, let's use Kirilenko as an example. These extended minutes playing the way he did tonight is almost like his own little training camp to try and get him back ready to be a big contributor when they need him in the playoffs. So unless you hear the message that's being sent, it's really tough to pass judgment.
Ian, big picture, and then Mike, after that, what are you going to take from this season? What are some of the lasting memories?
Well, the way this team turned it around, no doubt about it, Bob. When you think back to where this team was in San Antonio, Mike and I were there New Year's Eve. They fell to 10-21 on the year, and there is nobody after that game that thought this team's ready to take that next step. It changed very quickly for them in Oklahoma City, and then they built on it. Defensively, I think they simplified a lot of what they were doing defensively. Jason Kidd was able to get this team to play cohesively, and then the belief kicked in. I thought a big key also was Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. When they went to Boston, had the ceremony, I think for Pierce, that was closure in many ways. And maybe from that point on, he really became a Brooklyn Net. Up until that point, that was still hanging over him, how he would be received, how it would be handled, and for Garnett as well. But I thought Garnett had bought in much earlier. From that point on, Pierce was fully engaged. Joe Johnson emerged as a consistent go-to guy. Williams improved second half of the season. Sean Livingston has been one of the great stories in the NBA this season. So a lot of things to feel good about heading into the postseason. You wonder if this last stretch becomes a forgotten part of the equation. If they come out and beat Toronto in Game 1, nobody's going to talk about the 1-4 stretch to end the year.
There were so many things that changed during this season. You start from the beginning, exhibition season, where the minutes were really monitored by Jason Kidd and the staff. They didn't want to have an early season injury to one of these veteran guys. Jason Kidd understanding that it takes veterans a little bit of time to get going. They don't get their legs immediately. You may go 10, 15 games before they start to feel that their shot is going. I thought that was exactly what happened to Pierce. All of a sudden, there was one night where you saw Pierce start making shots, and then he went on to make shots after that. Like it all came together for him. They figured out offensively, here's where we started the year, what we thought we could do. You lose Lopez, you change some things around, and then they had to figure out, wait a minute, we can't play that way anymore. Here's how we're going to play now. Meanwhile, defensively, they were all over the place at the beginning of the year. Once it clicked in and they made themselves a cohesive unit and they bought in and they understood about helping, about overloading the defense, about taking away certain things, it became a very difficult defense to score on because they were able to switch so many situations and not get burned on the switches.
And the versatility, those switches really became an advantage for the Nets because they could mix and match, and there's no doubt about it. When they went small, when Lopez went out, Sean Livingston inserted in the starting lineup, it just gave the team new life and a second lease on life because at 10-21, there weren't a lot of people that were picking the Nets to be a contender in the Eastern Conference after all the hype before the season started, Bob.
Yeah, they made a tremendous turnaround. Guys, I know, listen, it's a hybrid post-game show, so before you go, you are multifaceted. I felt like you wanted a piece of breaking down Masahiro Tanaka. Ian, you or Mike?
Special. He's special. I mean, how often do you get all the buildup, and oftentimes guys don't live up to it? So far, this guy has been every bit of what the Yankees thought they were getting in that big money deal. Mike?
I thought Pineda also did a very good job.
Wait, you worked your game, Mike, and you also kept an eye on what Pineda did tonight?
It's amazing.
Jimmy Spinarco texts me during the course of the game and kind of keeps me up on other things that are going on. So as soon as we get done with this, I actually have to get back to Gym.
That's scary.
All right,
scary,
we'll let you go.
What's
What is he doing?
on?
Is Jimmy doing a podcast or something you have to join him on?
I think he does from his basement. Yeah, it's very popular.
Guys, we'll let you go. Good talking to you. Have a great night.
All right, Bob, all the best. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.